Okay, we've got the snap ring taken care of now. I'm going to move on to my direct drum here. That's no good. This drum is unsuitable for my use. The reason being, it was a 3-plate, not to make a 4. Well, I'm waiting on a transmission part supplier, see the double groove, to bring me a 5-clutch drum for this. Originally it had a 3-clutch drum over there in it. I don't like those. I want to get at least 5 in this. And I also, something to note, I'm using the full thickness, the full size steels and frictions. The thin ones, you can get more number of clutches in there, but they don't seem to handle the heat as well. With the thinner clutches, you'll get warpage and other problems similar to that. Once you get one of those clutches warped, it steady burns the rest of the pack out because it acts just like a spring, applying the drum all the time via spring pressure versus hydraulic pressure. Alright, well, since we're waiting on that drum, let's go ahead and build the pump. There's the original pressure plate. It's garbage. Garbage! Get it out of that. Alright. Go ahead. Pump now. Retrieve my hammer. Front seal. Get my trusty bushing cutter. Now, something that's always bothered me, I watched a lot of other people building trannies on TV and various shows, and that always shows them when they're driving it about, they're driving it out from the inside out. You should never do that. Some trannies actually have a lip to prevent that from happening. You have to inspect it first and look and see what it's got where. The reason being I was taught never to drive it that way is you don't want to set grooves going towards the outside of the tranny because it can cause the bushing to want to walk out, which is really bad. That's why we drill drain backs in pumps. That's why we stake the bushing in place. You know, there's a lot of things that we do trying to combat that, but it was just, if you push it out the front, it can make it want to come out that way. You know, you don't need to squeeze it past there. Drive it back in, and then you install it from the inside. Now, this is going to be one of those do as I say, not as I do kind of things. Because you should typically, when you're starting, you should always use some sort of a small press. You know, you can put a piece of chain at one end and use a pry bar and push down on it to press your bushings in. I actually have an arbor press that I use, but for just doing pump bushings, things like that, I've been doing it so long, I feel comfortable just hammering them in with the bushing driver and doing it by hand that I can get it in there straight without deforming the bushing. Just been doing it for 15 years now. You kind of get the know of if it's going in straight. Hear the sound difference when it bottoms there. Alright, just gonna take this one, just drive it down that last little bit to seat it. good there. Now I have sizing hubs. We got these from a buddy of mine that builds converters. You know, he took and welded them onto a piece I can use as a handle. That's without any lubricant. I pushed it in dead true. You're always going to want to try your bushing before you go any further. You know, when I first started out, I deformed a lot of bushings. If you don't have the handle like that, you can do it on your existing converter. You know, as long as your bushing hub is good. You know, you put this on there and you seat it, and if it's a little bit tight or you feel a bind, you use the rubber part or a wooden mallet or something and you tap around it with this bushing on your hub, and that will size the bushing to the bore and allow it to free up. As you've seen, that one was already free. Now, you see the wire around the outside. See the silver on that? That is the garter spring in your bushing or in your seal. When I first got into this trade, I had c-6 Thunderbird, and I put a front pump seal in it. When I changed the motor out, I pulled the motor and rebuilt it. I was 16. When I put the pump seal back in, it was a c-6, one of these exact same seals. I didn't do what I'm doing right now. And man, I got it in there and that thing just poured fluid out the front pump. Well, I felt pretty stupid because now after going through all the trouble of putting the motor in and all that, I still couldn't drive it because my front transmission seal was leaking. I had to pull my transmission out, and I took it to a guy who replaced the bushing and seal like I'm doing now. Typically, you should always change that pump bushing. I mean, I change them in every single tranny I rebuild, regardless of whether they're perfect or not. I change them with a brand new one. Can't stress that enough. Pump bushing is the most critical bushing because it actually acts as a seal. If the bushing is loose, it lets the fluid pass by the bushing and then overwhelm the seal. And you heard the sound difference there. When you're fully seated, you'll hear a sound difference. You just got to listen to it. I'm deaf and I can hear it. I know you guys can. So we got that part of it done. Now I've already picked up new pump gears right here. You would want to check them just like I'm doing these, even though these are brand new. New doesn't mean right. Now, what you can do if you're going to be doing a lot of high performance stuff and you don't want to listen to the pump whine. I personally would rather have the pump whine and get a little bit more pressure out of this, but you can take the inner gear and put it on a sander and just take just a little bit off the tips. Because what happens is, over the course of time, this gear will contact the inner crescent and make noise. Well, I leave them the way they are, but some people do grind them down. Okay. Here we have that assembled. And you can actually see the way the pump works is one side is pickup, one side is pressure. Now, I'm going to say it rotates like this, and as this expands, it creates a vacuum that draws the fluid up. But actually, I think this is this is suction over here. It goes up like this, sucking up the fluid. As it expands, it creates a vacuum, pulls the fluid up into here. It travels around on both sides of the gear rotor, and as it comes over here, it's under compression now as these gears squeeze back together, forcing it down out this. And that's capable of making easily 300 psi. Lubricant in there. This is my own special blend. It's a little bit of STP oil treatment, a little bit of transmission fluid, a little bit of transmission jelly, you know, all kind of blended up and beat up with a wire beater that I made. Now, I've seen guys that'll pack the pump full of grease, which is a good idea if you're going to be storing it for long periods of time. This transmission's going in short order. So I'm just lubricating it up with some oil so that once it's on first startup, it'll prime itself regardless, but once it's on first startup, those first 10, 15 revolutions, it won't be dry. Just like a car engine, that's where you get the worst wear is on dry startup. So try and keep all our components in excellent shape.